Hi everyone, good afternoon. Today's e-talk is very current since we'll be talking about synchronous and asynchronous learning activities brought about by online distance learning, which has become the new normal in education nowadays. Just to give you a backstory of why we often hear synchronous and asynchronous learning, it all started out with online distance learning, where two modes of learning are combined, namely online learning and distance learning. When we say distance learning, it simply means that the teacher and learners are geographically remote or far away from each other. And this could mean that ODL could either be done online or offline. Other forms of distance learning that do not require the internet are modular learning and homeschooling. Maybe you're familiar with them. On the other hand, online learning is basically electronic learning or learning that takes place using a platform such as a learning management system or tools such as a video conferencing app over the internet. So that means the internet is a weapon so that online learning could take place. We hear online courses, virtual classrooms, synchronous and asynchronous activities. They all play a big role on distance learning. Simply, the combination of both would give us a definition, and that is, it is technology supported, internet enabled mode of learning that bridges the gap between teacher and learner distance by bringing them together in a virtually oriented environment, thus making learning possible. Now, to share what Silliman has on ODL, we use a fully online modality that makes the most of asynchronous activities. Now, you might be questioning how a fully online mode would capitalize on offline activities. More on that as we go along. So what we'll be talking here are the definition, activities, the pros and cons, and some tips on the use of the now popular synchronous and asynchronous learning activities. First, let us define the terms synchronous and asynchronous learning. What are they and how do they differ from each other? When we say synchronous learning, we mean that teachers and learners engage in real-time learning activities with the use of digital technology and platforms over the internet. They see or interact with each other real-time so that learning could take place. Synchronous activities are scheduled, done on real-time, and online with the presence of both teacher and the learners in a platform that serves as the classroom. In fact, this is the closest we could be to being in a physical classroom setting. On the other hand, asynchronous learning happens through online channels where accessing of materials in the form of notes and activities and asking questions through a discussion board take place. But it does not have to be real time, nor with the virtual presence of the teacher. It should be highlighted that practicing the skill and doing the actual activity could be done offline. As for SU or for Silliman, we highlight the use of asynchronous learning methods so that we could help our students on internet connectivity issues, which means they only need to be online to access the instructions of the activity and spend the rest of the time offline to perform the activity. More importantly, asynchronous activities are highlighted due to health reasons. Imagine us and our students being stuck in the computer for the whole duration of the day when classes are taking place. that would be too much for our eyes to handle. That is why, in as much as being online is key to ODL, it is also equally important to give emphasis on asynchronous learning methods. So, how is it done? What are the highlighted activities of each type? We should touch on that to make us understand more these terms. The most popular synchronous activities are chatroom time, live stream lectures and discussions, as well as video conferences since they take place in chat and videocon apps, which, by the way, are sprouting like mushrooms nowadays, but we should be thankful. Those apps that we so casually used before to simply communicate with our loved ones from afar instantly became makeshift virtual classrooms. They may not be purposefully made for synchronous learning, but for sure it provides the closest feel to being in a real classroom activity, which is interactive classroom activities. The existence of learning management systems in virtual classrooms is highlighted in conducting synchronous activities since they are venues for scheduled quizzes and exams, class attendance checking. By the way, for Seoul, our learning management system, we also have an attendance checker that the students could actually use so that they could have that feel that it's still in a classroom set up such that their attendance is checked whenever it is a scheduled online meeting. And then we have other real-time online activities. By the way, this may come as a surprise to my colleagues, but in scheduled online exams, it is the teacher's option to be virtually there to monitor the activity. In this kind of synchronous activity, two factors are very important to make this activity successful. One is how we teachers construct our questions in a way that it does not only stir the lower order thinking skills of the learners, which happens if we just copy paste the questions from the notes. Rather, our questions should develop the higher order thinking skills of our learners. But with virtual amenities such as live logs, videocon apps, and webcam sharing, we can still monitor them while they are taking the exam real time. If we teachers are actually well equipped and trained, those concerns should not be much of a bother. Some other synchronous activities that I could add to the list, which we have done during the summer classes, are SWOT analysis presentation through a video conferencing app of Soul, which is the big blue button. We also had open forum for real-time discussions on certain topics, which it's a different interface because we don't usually see each other face to face, but it's our discussion and forum is real time in a sense that we exchange discussions in a scheduled actual time for everyone. Everyone is there and everyone gets to um, share uh, his or her piece of knowledge about a topic, and everyone is also there to react and to give or add more knowledge to that particular topic. And then we have chat room time, especially I have done this one for Q&As on instructions and activities, especially during the time when I have assigned it the time when they are online to access the instructions and activities. For asynchronous activities, a lot could also be mentioned. In order to lessen our screen time, teachers have resorted to making pre-recorded lecture videos which they share to their students. And of course, face-to-face activities were transposed in such a way that they become online distance learning ready and are now available, readily accessible online. The instructions are readily accessible, that is, but they are doable offline. Again, I have to repeat that instructions are readily accessible online, but they are doable offline. Activities such as case studies and research may entail the use of the internet, but it's not actually done real time with the rest of the class. So that's considered an asynchronous activity. Other activities such as producing a video of a performance task, audio and sound mixing, accomplishing worksheets, even taking photos of your formula when you are doing problem solving. They all can be done offline, non-real time. Collaborative but not real-time activities using productivity tools could still be done through cloud computing. Also, the good old email is still a very effective tool for the delivery of asynchronous activity instructions and communication. All these, be it online or offline, do not require students to be with their teacher real time, thus giving them opportunities of discovery learning and self-directed learning. Now, why are we even classifying these activities as synchronous and asynchronous? It's because their pros and cons give us an idea when and where they should be used best. Naturally, because both teacher and learners are virtually present real time, synchronous activities encourage teacher and learner as well as learner to learner interactions, immediate feedback, and of course that's brought about by instantaneous questioning. That is the essence of synchronous activities. Especially for our young learners, I have to highlight this one. The, who I'm talking about are our preschool learners and primary graders. Synchronous activities are very important to them because they are still establishing their minds to be conditioned for school. It is quite a challenge also to the teachers handling them because school means going to a real classroom and maybe having the feel of learning and enjoying in a real classroom. Thus, synchronous activities should be well planned out in such a way that they could feel that learning is fun with their teacher, even if it is just virtual. Inasmuch as we desire to be real time with all the learning activities, who wouldn't want that? It also has its limitations. All sync activities should be scheduled and presented to the learners way ahead of time. As a teacher, you can just conduct it whenever you want it or whenever your schedule permits you, since you have to be mindful of the other classes' synchronous schedules. Also, inconsistent internet connection plays a big factor in making or breaking a synchronous activity. As a teacher, we should also find ways and means for our learners to save internet data or prepare them for activities that would need a stronger internet connection. As what I have experienced during the summer classes, um, we all know that not everyone has the best internet connection. Especially, I am also mindful of how my students are experiencing with their internet connectivity. That is why we have to capitalize on well-planned asynchronous activities because it will really help them achieve the learning outcomes of a particular topic just because they could just access a few minutes of their time online to get or download the activity instructions, and then they could do it independently offline or without the use of the internet. Lastly, if real-time class schedules are followed, it also means limited real-time activities. I realized that doing real-time online presentations take more time than actual face-to-face presentations. Why? The teacher has to make the learners, the presenters in the app, and be a full-on moderator and controller of the system in order for the presentation to successfully take place. It still needs more practice in order for us, even teachers, to be skilled on that particular aspect. On the other hand, asynchronous activities promotes self-paced discovery learning, as what I've mentioned earlier, and gives more time for the learner to understand and reflect on the lesson. This is actually very true. The more you learn it by yourself, the more you would also go deeper into the lesson or go deeper in finding examples or in finding other other information that would really connect to that particular topic in order for you to understand it more, thus giving you time to reflect on the lesson if you are really satisfied with the understanding that you have. But it entails a whole lot of discipline and focus in order for asynchronous activities to be accomplished and completed. That is, especially in the part of the learner, it needs real discipline and focus. If the learner is drawn to give in to distractions and temptations, too much asynchronous activities would not be good at all. Why? Because they will be deflected. No, we should always have the method of um, reconnecting them back to focus on the lessons and of course the course. Now, these cons for both methods could be remedied with essential knowledge on ODL principles, which we at Silliman are following. So the ODL system of Silliman lives by the principles of flexible learning, flipped learning, and microlearning. We should understand that flexible learning tools are essential in order for us to maximize learning in ODL. In this case, flexible learning tools come in the form of a computer, internet connection, centralized learning management system, and even portable apps in the absence of the internet. By the way, we are still on the works of a portable apps in order to cater to students who are still having a hard time with their internet connection. Synchronous and asynchronous learning is well emphasized in the practice of flipped classroom or flipped learning, wherein the conventional notion of classroom-based learning is inverted, such that asynchronous activities are key in order for synchronous activities to be inclined to knowledge deepening already, which means activities are offered to them. That's why they could access the instructions freely from the learning management system, and then they do it on their own offline. Thus, because of the deeper understanding, when they come back for synchronous activities, which is like a discussion about that particular activity in a topic, it is more inclined to knowledge deepening. We should not take for granted, rather, microlearning, since it does not only help us with the actual learning that takes place in the form of smaller units of learning, materials, and exams, but it also helps us in the technical side of things. Smaller packets, units, are easily uploaded and downloaded, and I'm talking of file sizes, while It is easily absorbed. Learning or knowledge is easily absorbed and mastered by the learner if they come in small packets. Other tips that I could share to you in the use of the synchronous and asynchronous learning activities are on the aspects of virtual classroom management, activity scheduling and planning, and intellectual property and data privacy. As in face-to-face classrooms, virtual classroom management is also very important. Thus, virtual classroom policies should be set. We should have a clear set of virtual classroom policies, especially for synchronous activities. Based on experience, I have already set these classroom policies and have presented it to them during our classroom orientation or during our course orientation. From the get-go, video conferencing and chat session rules should be clear to learners. Online exam procedures and mechanics should be well explained. As for me, what I did or what I have been doing is that I tell them that whenever we have an online exam, they should be able to share their webcams to me. This is quite crucial in a sense that an online exam should be scheduled and should be presented to them, or it should be communicated to them way ahead of the time so that they could also prepare for a better or at least a stronger internet connection by then. Also, I ask my learners to share their webcams to me in order for me to monitor them and in order for me to have an idea if their surrounding or their environment is conducive for them to take the online exam. Also, a better virtual classroom organization can be achieved if a virtual classroom template is available for grade or year level and grading system. In that way, the teacher can concentrate on what to put and display in the virtual classroom since all components are specialization specific. Also, it is very important to plan and present the learners the set days for asynchronous activities and when is it available, as well as present to them the schedule for synchronous activities in order for them to be prepared, especially with their internet connection, as I have highlighted earlier, on those days. Lastly, we should be aware in the proper handling of intellectual property and data privacy, especially copyrighted materials that we share over our virtual classrooms and we share to our learners. And we also should be careful with data privacy over our student information on how to use them, share, and reproduce them correctly and properly. Okay, so thank you very much for the time. We hope that we have imparted some useful ODL knowledge that's very helpful in this trying time in education amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Hopefully, we'll see each other in another e-talk session so that we could share more of ODL techniques and ODL information that could be very beneficial to everyone, not just Silliman teachers or Silliman professors, but also to those who would need this kind of information in order for us to effectively and efficiently use asynchronous and synchronous learning activities. Have a nice day, everyone, and stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.